This video was a dizzying experience, but there's definitely plot here, and I think we can best start to lay it all out by focusing on location to begin with. I will be making a whole video purely on the locations of the Looniverse as a starting guide for future orbits later, but right now we need to understand that of the three primary locations in the Looniverse, this video takes place on the Moon, aka the World of Odd. This is a pretty consistently accurate take given other videos of theirs. With the Paint the Town video culminating in a shot of the Earth closing in on the ceiling of the amphitheater, thus the Moon crashing into the planet, it seems we are continuing the arc LOONA set up for us, revolving around this world's destruction. In fact, I think I might very well say that So What, Why Not, and Paint the Town are three different looks at the exact same event from three different angles. Let's take a quick look at the different members of LOONA in the video, what they're doing, and where. Heejin is shown in a hallway with planets floating around her, evocative of her colored crystals in the hallway of Vivid. As the planets and moon in this scene are acting normal, that is to say, they are orbiting, this relates her status as an Earth native. Eve is shown in the same hallway with these celestial objects greatly reduced in scale and orbiting only one limb of hers, relating her status as someone from the sun, aka Eden. Cherry is shown in the same room within her purple halo, with planets orbiting both of her limbs, relating her status as someone able to access both ends of the spectrum, Earth and Eden, or to go between. Yojin is shown hiding out in a garden where it rains, and Haseul is shown wreathed in flames, actually on fire herself, but unharmed, and later with neon wings behind her. Gowon does a thing, same with Vivi. Hyunjin dances in the amphitheater with a yellow sari and lighting yellow fumes. Olivia is banging on a war drum within the same amphitheater, surrounded by a ring of flames. Kimlip is shown standing on the altar and holding the eclipse within her hands. Chu is shown with falling petals, similar to her appearance in Why Not. Jinsol is shown in the chandelier hallway with a blue halo behind her, and later replaces Kimlip on the altar at the very end of the video. Now might be a good time to consider what an apocalypse means in the Looniverse. It's been hinted at as far back as Singing in the Rain. For starters, the unit members of YYXY are intrinsically linked to the concepts of falls from grace and destruction. Eve's lyrics reminisce of Icarus, Chu seems to nearly die at the end of Heart Attack, Gowon has become more and more linked with the calamitous hurricane in recent years, and Olivia is well known as a Lucifer parallel, heralding the end of the world. They are not the only ones to exhibit this, however. Other Eden natives, such as Vivi and Jinsol, also share recurring motifs surrounding death or destruction. By contrast, the members of Odd Eye Circle are described as on a mission to save the world. This can make things complicated when a member of Odd Eye Circle is also a fallen angel from Eden, and yes, I am referring to Jinsol. And we're now going to explore the possibility that not only has each video of the last arc been a differently angled glance at the same event, but possibly that the entire Looniverse videography has as well. Sit with me for a moment and think about the concept of a broken being, like the Great Fairies from that Zelda game with all the masks, or the broken god of SCP Foundation lore. That being cannot reach the full potential it had as a single unified person, but at the same time, neither can it do the same damage as it otherwise could. I've been sitting on this theory for a very long time, so if you'll step back with me into 2019, remember the one video in which it was all but spelled out that YYXY are, in some fashion, the same person, with Olivia Hye as the center and the others as offshoots? Remember this curious little definition of the third subunit in the description of Hi Hi? The emotions of each girl's, faith, hope, love, and anger gather to form a being named YYXY. I've been toying with the idea for some time now that this is a literal translation of events. That is to say, YYXY are not a being in the subunit sense, but an actual physical character split into four. At one point, they were all one person, and now are not. But why would somebody split them into four? To hinder them? Or to keep them from hurting others? Motifs for YYXY include apples, snow, hurricanes, and fire. While Eve doesn't get to do much as a harbinger of chaos, from Chu onward there are signs. By the time Chu falls, the world is shown to be covered in snow and ice, which is at least what we are shown in her counterpart Haseul's videos. Gowon's fall summons a hurricane. The fall of Olivia concludes with the moon going up in flames and crashing into the earth. In other words, YYXY falling may have been, itself, a catastrophe that splitting them was intended to prevent. But as each portion fell, the apocalypse grew closer and more complete. I have a reference for what a fully realized YYXY looks like before they were split, which is Jisung from the Everyday I Love You video. When Eve falls after her separation, Vivi recognizes her for who she once was. I'd like to now posit that both other Eden natives, Vivi and Jinsoul, are also fully realized YYXY beings. They share the sun motif common to the third subunit, and the former was made into an android and the latter imprisoned in some fashion, both of them being held back by this. To create something new, first you must destroy. The caption on one of Jinsoul's teasers. A YYXY falling is a synonym for catastrophe. At least 3 exist, and steps were taken to make sure all 3 did not complete a process that ends the world. As of now, those measures have failed. Now, let's examine Odd Eye Circle, the ones who are supposed to save this world. Kimlip's and Jinsoul's measures to awaken Cherry's power, which leads to the fall of Gowon, seem to imply they actually want the world destroyed, which ties into the caption of Jinsoul's teaser. Burn the world down, then remake it. Finally conquering the Looniverse with their own strengths, Loona then discovers a bigger world that they have never known about. The caption on Paint the Town. The theme of mutation and evolution that corrupts Cherry, with her odd eye located on the right and being a fusion of 2 colors, continues all the way through to Why Not, where the signature Odd Eye Circle converse goes from white to black. Odd Eye Circle and YYXY are the subunits with the most clearly defined timeline. Sweet Crazy Love comes before Eclipse, and Love Sharing Motion comes before Girlfriend and One and Only. The YYXY solos come in sequential order, and Love Forever is a direct prequel to Egoist. We can take this timeline even further with Why Not and Paint the Town, and that Singing in the Rain and Why Not, both consumed by darkness and rainstorms, likely take place concurrently or right after one another, and most likely precede Eclipse, and with Eclipse, Paint the Town. Since Butterfly, Loona has been in the practice of taking a motif from one member and expanding it to the whole group. Gowon's Butterfly for XX, Olivia's Red Suffusion representing Anger for So What, and the White Converse mutating into black for their whole group in Why Not. But that wasn't the only thing. In that video, we also saw Cherry sitting in a cage of neon, which had otherwise been reserved for Jinsoul, representatively sitting amongst flames. Kimlip also sang about a small, square room, which is an audio representation of said cage. So that's one motif expanded to the whole subunit, which returns again in PTT, each member of the subunit accessing an odd eye halo, as happened with Kimlip in Eclipse. But at the same time, an odd motif and a YYXY motif join forces in a member of 1/3, which leads us to Haseul. Haseul has now inherited the fire motif associated with Olivia Ye, and by the end of the video, her wings of flame become wings of neon, linking her back to Odd Eye Circle. She is a new being now, with new power. I think the Orbit fandom's guesses that her bird had become linked to the Phoenix, a mythological creature that dies in fire and is reborn from the ashes, were on the money. Which begs a question. What does 1/3 have to do with all this? In the grand scheme of things, aren't they supposed to be just normal, mundane girls from Earth? Well, yes, but I think each one of them knows a bit more about what's going on than they're sharing. Starting with Yojin, and it is so pleasant to be able to finally utilize her in a theory, I think she's been here the whole time. In the world of Odd, I mean, on the moon. There's been notes as far back as the debut of 1/3 on what her being lost in the forest means, which up until now I've dismissed as a handwave to explain her absence from unit activities. Which, to be fair, it almost certainly was, but now we can make it into something more. However she got here may not be important, but if she wasn't on Earth, it was likely because she knew something was up and fled to the moon. She seems relatively at peace here, which is probably because she knew she was avoiding the end of the world. We can see her on a barren Earth and Why Not, looking back up at the moon, so maybe she was there for one last glance at the place she used to call home. But Yojin probably isn't the only one to have realized the world was ending soon. Haseul has had as big an absence from the lore as she did. Remember Let Me In, where Haseul slays the bird, and X2X, where the truck representing travel through the worlds takes her away, and Gowon futilely tries to catch up? Let's add to the timeline a little. Let Me In must take place before Gowon's fall, but probably after Choose, and definitely after Love Sharing Motion. We see her slay another version of herself in the frozen wasteland, so she may have been enacting her very own destruction and rebirth in order to escape a permanent end. Her recurring parallels with Odd Eye Circle and YYXY hint that she's taken steps to ensure herself. Hyunjin too seems sensitive to the inner workings of the Looniverse, with her recurring ring motif. We see a new hint in Paint the Town, where she's lighting the lanterns that burn with yellow smoke. Yellow smoke, which was last seen in High High, which meant that the world was on borrowed time as far back as the initial completion of LOONA. It makes perfect sense she'd be in on Odd Eye Circle's plan to destroy the world and remake it, since Cherry is ended up being her reflected self. The reason Gowon contacted her in Seesaw despite never meeting her is because she thought she was contacting Cherry, who enacted her fall. And Heejin, who was able to meet up with Olivia just after her fall, must know something too. They may be confined to Earth, but they're not innocent, out of the loop, or helpless. There's other hints too that this plan has been in action for a while. Sonatine, for example, ends with a line, "A new world will be open to us," and takes place in the same location as X4X. The somber attitude and gray skies imply they know the end is near. The very beginning of the usage of rings of light here implies that Hyunjin was particularly important here, perhaps in getting everyone to the moon from this site. So now, let's take every LOONA video that concerns events of the Looniverse and construct, for the first time ever, a complete timeline. For the sake of simplicity, we'll use the YYXY solos as synonyms for the falls of specific members. We'll place Vivid and Kiss later at the beginning for the same reasons, as they take place in confined voids which showcase each soloist's evolution, but otherwise make no reference to other events. Love and Live and Every Day I Love You showcase the good days, before the chain of events is set in motion. Love Forever and New highlight the events that led Eve to Earth, and Why Not and Sweet Crazy Love detail her arrival on Earth and the beginning of Jinsoul and Kimba's stories. Singing in the Rain capitalizes on this, and Love Cherry Motion sees the plan truly get underway. Girlfriend involves tracking down the members of 1/3 to get them in on it, and while all of this is happening, Chu and Gobon are falling in Heart Attack and One and Only. By the time the end is truly approaching, the girls meet up in Hong Kong and Sonatine, only for Haseul to venture off to the frozen wasteland alone. The fall is the key. Jinsoul and Eve are the key players. Eve falls, and soon after, Jinsoul breaks free, and their machinations organize both Odd Eye Circle and YYXY, and send the message to 1/3 to get ready, the end is coming, and it's time for a new beginning. Eve's fall darkens the world, and Jinsoul breaking free causes huge storms. Chu's fall covers the world in ice and snow, and Gowon's fall causes huge hurricanes to bring desolation to the Earth's surface. Olivia's fall is the brick that brings the tower down, causing the moon to go up in flames and then crashing it into the planet. Everyone has to be ready to act before that final button is pressed. I'll even throw a bone to butterfly theorists, since the video is otherwise bare of lore. The amphitheater makes an appearance, and the entire video is otherwise extremely peaceful and harmonious, so this probably represents the world LOONA want to create from the ashes of the old one. Thus, it's their dream to be reached and will have to come after all the other videos. There is no villain, but this is the story of the world's end, and now it's time to see what comes after.